We've got about 3 minutes left, and I wanted to give you some more time to talk about your ministries because they're so critical for our listeners to have a more complete education, but we're going to have to do this relatively quickly. Can you tell us a little quickly about Raiders News Network and about your book publishing and some of your own books, and then we'll come back and talk about some of the specifics on another day. But give us some quick information on how they can keep up to date with these topics.
All right. Well, if they want to visit the Raiders News Network, it's spelled just like the football team, RAIDERS News Network, Raiders News Network .com. You can also get their Raiders News Update.com.
How many people come to that site regularly?
Boy, I haven't checked in a long time, but it's in the many millions of people.
Amazing.
And,
wow.
We're very happy about that. We also have our Christian publishing house. We're probably a medium-sized publishing house. We'll publish probably 50 authors. This year, we've got some extraordinary authors that are coming out very soon. Dr. Bill Salas has written a book. The name of the book is Israelistine, and he's talking about what's happening in Israel right now, and it's getting huge exposure and commentary from some of the biggest names in the nation right now who think that he's really keyed in on what's happening in the Middle East and how that's going to unfold prophetically. David Flynn has written a book called Temple at the Center of Time. This is a book you have got to get. It includes charts, maps, measurements, and it shows how the original temple in Jerusalem is related to every important historical event that is connected to Israel down through time in exact measurements. He does this using military satellites. I'm telling you, this book is something like you've never seen before, and at the end of this book, you will be convinced that God put the original temple in Jerusalem exactly where it sets to be a time clock for all of the prophetic events, including future prophetic events.
When are you going to get him on our show? That's what I want to know.
Well, we can get him on your show pretty soon. The book's out July 1. I'm hoping to have copies of the book. I'll send you a review copy of the book in about 3 weeks.
Please do so.
This is one of the most, by the time, and with these charts, by the time you get to the end of this book, nobody would be able to deny the facts about the location of the temple in Jerusalem and what it means for the future and what it has meant down through time. But so we're very happy. We really feel that we've been given this opportunity by God. You said earlier in this show that we're the hub, but the truth is, Dr. Future and Tom Bionic, I really believe in my soul that God has brought together a group of people for these last days, and that he's bringing all of us together at one time, and that in a unified voice, we're going to be able to be used by him to provide what many people are going to be looking for and what people need to be able to keep their feet on solid ground as we enter into an extraordinary moment in history.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being with us today. There's so much more I'd like to talk to you about. We will try to make our listeners aware of all the other dimensions of the books you offer and other things over time. Of course, a lot of your authors will hopefully make their way through our show in the weeks and months ahead. But I just want to thank you for your contribution and leadership in our field. And I know when your radio show comes out, things are never going to be the same again.
Well, I'm just happy to be back on your show again. I always love being on radio with you guys, and happy to do it anytime we can.
Anytime you could cram in a few moments in your busy schedule, we'd love to have you back.
Yeah.
We know you need to go. Thank you so much, Brother Tom. We appreciate your time with us, and please drop back in as soon as you can and keep us updated. Welcome back to the Future Quake Show. I am Dr. Future.
And I am Tom Bionic.
And this is the time when every week we do tomorrow's trimmers or today's review of the future's news. Mm-hmm. Are you ready? We've got some good stories to jump into.
I'm excited. I'd actually like to see what you have going
Thank
on.
you.
I'm looking over at your pile there.
Well, you are consistent with the and the thumbum that we got. It said actually it was my turn this week. By the way, we're going to read a story here that's done by Pastor Chuck Baldwin, who is also not only a pastor of one of the most influential churches in America, but he is the presidential candidate of the Constitution Party, which is the third largest presidential party in America. Did you know that? They're the third largest.
I did not know that.
Yeah, right after Democrats and Republicans.
I actually did know that, but I didn't know how they.
But you played along well. Good on that. that you didn't know?
Thank you.
We could do like one of those witnessing videos.
Me and
What must I do to be saved?
Great.
No, seriously. He is the. He was recently elected, and we covered this on our prior FutureQuake show. He was nominated over Alan Keyes, 3-1, as the presidential candidate, and should be on the ballot box in either every state or just about every state. But this gentleman is a pastor of a independent Baptist church, very, very strong on biblical fundamentals, on biblical inerrancy, and on beliefs that are biblically based.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to mention back to last week's news that we had to hurry up and finish, where evangelicals at the Southern Baptist Convention and elsewhere are saying that well, we only have two choices. We got to pick the lesser evil. This guy hates us and despises us, but we'll just have to go on him because we might get gay marriage with the other one. And I would like to mention to a lot of you, and some of you may just be innocently unaware, although as citizens, even though you're Christians, you still have an obligation to be informed. And I have fingers pointing back to me as well too on this. Including Tom and I, have the obligation to be informed. But
that's kind of why we started the show,
right?
Almost. Yeah.
But this is an alternative that is out there. You have someone who believes what evangelicals believe, and has an available belief system, and he has I guess a provocative story right now that's going to be
And I would like to point out that we have, I believe we have his acceptance speech up at FutureQuake, don't we?
Well, we actually have a show about the results of the Constitution Party.
Yes.
And I want to make clear to everybody, we're not here to try to promote a party. We're not affiliated with them. We don't have any association connection directly. They make for an interesting guest.
Yes.
But we just try to report information that you may not be aware of. And I'm guessing most of you in the audience, this is probably news to you, that you have someone who's an evangelical that supports what I understand you to believe, that is available in the ballot box for you to pull a ballot button for.
Mm-hmm.
That actually believes in staunchly pro-life, and seriously, not just playing games with you, but really pro-life.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who believes other scriptural values about using honest money and being honest in an economic system that's not exploiting of others,
Mm-hmm.
of strong defense, but yet done with Christian values as well too. And a whole host of beliefs. For example, the Constitution Party, if you're not aware of it, is strong for homeschoolers. They believe in homeschoolers and parental rights. They believe that the government should stay out of our exercise of religion.
Mm-hmm.
If these are important issues for you as evangelicals, maybe you ought to go to constitutionparty.com. Again, we're not affiliated with them, but just in terms of education, you may hear on Christian radio a lot about the Republican Party or Democratic Party. So to round out your education, there's some information to you.
Yeah.
You might want to also mention too, last week, talking about McCain, there's been some suggestion that people would support him because of the selection of judges, and that judges related to pro-life and other family issues would be important to have a Republican in. And I would just like to remind our listeners that Senator McCain has been part of a Democrat-Republican gang of 14, which was sort of a mafia that took over Congress and stymied the Republican Party numerous times when they were trying to get key legislation through, and also
I remember that.
Trying to get away from judges that are too conservative, they believe, or ones that did not have a more liberal bent. They were supporting a more liberal bent, and that's your presidential nominee for the Republicans, John McCain. So you might want to just keep that in mind. You don't hear too much about that on the news these days.
Pretty much just here.
Right. On to Chuck Baldwin. This is his comments. Open borders prove, quote, war on terror is superficial. This is from independent Baptist pastor and presidential nominee Pastor Chuck Baldwin. The American people were led to believe that America's fine men and women in uniform were sent halfway around the world to Iraq and Afghanistan to fight a war on terror. Of course, everyone now knows that Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with the attacks on September 11, 2001. I am sure that most everyone also remembers that the vast majority of the terrorists who participated in those attacks were from Saudi Arabia, not Iraq. Yet, Saudi leaders continue to enjoy the coziest of relationships, and dare I say friendships, with President George W. Bush. Does anyone besides me remember when Bush said that countries had to decide whether they would be either friends with terrorists or the United States, but they could not be friends with both? Well, Saudi Arabia has probably financed, supported, and befriended more terrorists in the Middle East than any other nation in the world, except perhaps Red China. Yet they continue to be, quote, friends with the United States. Another glaring inconsistency regarding the war on terror is the fact that for some 7 years since the 9/11 attacks, our nation's borders and ports are as open and porous as ever. These open borders make the argument that we are, quote, fighting them over there so we won't have to fight them over here, unquote, look absolutely disingenuous, even laughable. Now, Tom, I'll just say this was the big issue that was the clincher for me when I started challenging everything I had believed as an evangelical over the last 2 years, is that everything that I have been sold about what's going on with the war on terror and the aftermath of things going on, I cannot make any sense of the fact that we're going around the world and door to door in other lands looking for these, quote, terrorists, when we have a border that everyone knows, it's no secret, is absolutely porous. We're told all sorts of threats from Department of Homeland Security about our water supplies being suspect, energy sources, all our food supply. We better put guards and put cameras everywhere watching it. But yet we've got a wide open border with people coming over that we don't know who they are. How can one say that our government is so consumed with protecting us with that glaring omission?